Uh, Hope everybody enjoyed last week off. I know we had a hectic delivery come through March. I think recuperating was rather nice, especially from my side. I was reflecting, we've almost been in the committee for a year since we started the interim phase last August. So we're coming up on that. Can everyone still see me? Laptop phased out for some reason. Okay, I'm gonna post the agenda. Be relatively, I think, short, just so we can kind of catch up unless conversation extends some of the dialogue. And so, matter of old business, I think security policy working group, heading off to you, Michael.
Sure. So I don't have much update there. I haven't managed to get the security folks to meet again. Yeah, we have a draft that hopefully I think we're iterating on addressing people's various concerns with the process, but I think we might have something that we could. Yeah, I want to have at least one more round of discussing that before maybe we ask the rest of you to look at it. Nothing, no other particular moves except continuing to try and nudge people towards Matrix. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. I guess once you get the draft done, we'll have the OSC review it, but it needs kind of TSC approval before it would take effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will take a while before we settle on something, but
yeah. Okay.
Especially, yeah, I mean, certainly you'll need the TSC or whoever because it suggests that there should be some roles which need to be then filled, and so it is making an ask of the organization as well.
Okay, I'll be sure to tie into delivery assurance folks as well. Okay. The project incubation or project lifecycle framework. I'm going to be setting up a technical working group, starting with Bogdan, Salona, and anyone else who's interested, just so I can start writing out that process. And Alex, if you're interested, I can tie you in as well. And Michael.
That was probably approval rather than volunteering.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's my initial incubation thing. I kind of hate it now from that initial draft, but I'll keep the same maturity names that we agreed to, and I'll start this document from scratch. I think Salona is going to be very valuable to helping me figure out how we integrate this properly. So I'll get that set up and then leave an open invite for anyone who wants to join the working groups. I'm also going to close down the strategy technical working group since we have something published, unless we see a need to bring it back in the future for editing or anything like that. But I think we're pretty good where it is. The next item is, I'll hand it off to you, George, go over open source office updates, just to let everyone aware of what we did Q1 wise.
Yes.
In the background.
Hi, everyone. Mainly, we finished our Q1 and we delivered all the deliverables that were planned for the Q1. And in the last 2 weeks, we started and are in progress 3 from our 4 deliverables for the Q2 until the end of June. We are working now on are in progress, develop metrics and reporting mechanisms, refine strategy and policies based on pilot insights, and define the project incubation process, which is one of the points that Christian already mentioned. Also, I would like to thank Silona, and thank you very much for writing the book about the inner source. It's one of maybe the nicest and useful books I ever read about the open source approach. It's a really nice language for a Romanian guy, so which is not English native, but also for someone that was strongly involved in the open source. It's really brilliant because there are 40 or 60 pages, depends on the format, of real pure experience, which is something that the peoples are not sharing in the books. Everyone is sharing what to do, but not so much how to do the things. And most important, why. So thank you once again very much. It's really helpful for us. We are deeping now, and we are trying to define the maintainer, uh, trusted committer in your
Mhm.
book, your role. So we are deeply involved. We started 3 from 4 deliverables, and I think we are on the track. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the comp. I just talked to O'Reilly, and we're now talking about possibly doing another one, which is best practices in open source governance.
It
So
will be beautiful.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Write that down for me so I can like send it to them.
I will.
Because we're literally going through the approval process right now. They just sent me the forms. The funny
Yeah.
thing is they came to me first and they said, "Can you write a book on citable AI?" And I was like, "I'm not really ready to do that, but I'm ready to do this one." And they're just like, "Oh, we don't have that yet." And they're like, "Let's sit there and see."
Yes,
So thank you. Thank you. I
it's
do
really
a very different writing style, and some people like you really love it and some people hate it.
yeah.
So it's just kind of like,
I think I'm in the first category because I really like it, and I already read it 3 times, not
oh
once.
wow, thank you, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
it did get translated into Japanese.
Okay,
So
now I have
that's
to
so
say
far.
I
That's the only
stop
language so far.
because it will be impossible for me.
George, you can even read it in Japanese as well, you know.
No, that's my point. I don't know enough words.
Well, I think our members meetings in Japan, so that'll be a good way to practice.
Thank you very
Nick,
much
you had
once
your hand
again.
raised.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, where can we track? Can we see the deliverables and things that you're working on somewhere and track them?
Yes. You got an invite for a new ClickUp space.
I saw that. I didn't see anything in it yet.
Yes, Tex is working on. He's taking over ClickUp management for me, just because I'm
Okay.
all over the place. So expect. We had it tracked in my open source board internally, but we're gonna migrate that over there and have the tasks
Okay.
in there.
And the second question would have been, like, how do those deliverables now aligned to the goals we had agreed on in the strategy?
Yeah. So you have the open source office roadmap and then the strategy, and we're kind of integrated with y'all. There's just independent things that we're doing as well from an Intersect POV, but we'll have all those tracked and integrated.
Okay, but that's then a question. Like, so is the open source office not the? I had assumed the open source office was going to be the primarily body that is basically enacting on the strategy as set forth by the open source committee. So I suppose I would have expected that the deliverables to the OSO answer up to the goals set by
they
the
do.
open source committee. Okay.
Yeah, we have that structure in place.
Okay, cool.
And we'll be reflecting in that committee board, and I'll invite everyone to it right after this call. ClickUp Space just got set up, and I think there's a separate Google Drive. Gitbook's already there, and there's some other things that they're instituting. And this is coming across for all committees in Intersect right now. But yeah, so what Tex has right there, Tex, if you can go click the open source committee section, that's our ClickUp space. So we'll add in the items there and then send it to everyone. But that's how we can track actual progress and our working groups as we develop and do stuff. We can
How did you decide to use
put it against
ClickUp?
that. So we were using Jira because it was a IOG carryover, and then Jira wouldn't negotiate pricing fairly because they raised prices, so they switched to ClickUp as a cheaper alternative. Does the same thing, and it has an integrated Confluence function, so we're deprecating our Confluence as well.
Okay, just wondering because ClickUp isn't even in proprietary. It would not be my first choice.
Yeah, it was more
So
of a. This was definitely.
I'm just warning you that I think ClickUp's kind of a shit show, but okay.
Well, as a PM over 10 years, I hate all project management software, so everything's the same to me. The nice
Yeah.
thing about this is it does allow you to share all the boards with external people, and they can have edit rights. So that's one thing I never got Jira to fully cooperate with me on.
No, there's a lot of tools that have that. But yeah, I'm just curious as to how that ended up being the one chosen. Just
It was an ICT function,
okay.
so they just naturally carried it over.
Okay.
So I think you're good on that text. So that's open source office updates. Next item, we got sad news, Michael.
Yeah, so I'm leaving IG. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I won't be participating in this committee work, but I'm all unclear at this point. For example, I'm going to remain on a small hours contract with IOG for a while. It's possible they'll want to pay for me to keep doing it for a bit, but I think it would be sensible to rotate me out probably. And this might be a good opportunity to also test out the election process, which we don't have, given that I think in theory, the entire end of the interim term for those of us who are appointed on here is supposed to be soon. So we can maybe make a trial of that. Yeah, but I think we don't currently have a process for that. And Christian, you found something from the membership and community?
Yeah,
committee?
so this was a all-purpose use case from the membership and community committee that they drafted. I think they ran election process with this. So the only thing they've highlighted is putting up a profile for anyone who wants to be chair, secretary, and then an others category for any of the general seats. And then high level process of how you do the meeting cadence to take.
Like it's all very oriented around like the people candidates are going to be members of the committee and like they're going to get 5 minutes each to speak, which doesn't make any sense if you imagine if we were going to. I still don't really understand how this is supposed to work, but the impression I had was that the committee's members are supposed, in theory, to be elected from amongst the members of Intersect, which is a much larger group, and they certainly can't all come to our meeting and spend 5 minutes introducing themselves, assuming we got some number of applications, which we might not. So I'm not sure that's quite fit for purpose. And also, Adam wrote something, right? Oh no, Adam wrote something about the cadence. I can't remember if you wrote something about the process as well.
Well, I was also involved in the drafting of this document because it actually came from the advisory board group. That's kind of a quasi committee that exists on its own from the community. So this was our process, our internal process that we developed to elect a chair or a secretary from the existing membership of the committee itself, and probably is not going to work well for an open to all members general election. So that's actually one of my action items for this week is to start to propose how we handle full open to all members elections. So I actually do already have that on my roadmap this week to start thinking about, because we're going to need external tooling, or do we, and a lot of other fun stuff.
Can we do a grimy version?
Yeah, I mean the TLDR right now that I'm thinking about is probably like when we're talking about the annual members meeting in Tokyo in October is going to be like an OAuth login sort of thing based on HubSpot, which I believe Intersect is using to manage everybody's membership status, and then probably leveraging a tool similar to or from an entity like Summon that already has pretty powerful voting tools in place that could then be wrapped up into a Merkle tree and the results published after the voting window closes. So long story short, put out a period where we ask for who's interested in joining, get our nominees, and then put up a vote over some period of time. And based on some criteria to ensure that we only have members that are participating, but we're not requiring them to do something silly like own an NFT or join a Discord or other things that large enterprise level members are probably not going to be interested in participating in, while still giving them a fair vote and a voice in the ecosystem. So that will be where the document that I have as a deliverable for next Friday will be pointing in that direction. I just have to work out the details.
Silona, Nicholas,
Hey.
please.
Thanks. Adam, so can I get a listing of some of the tech that we're looking at for doing this? Because I'm also worried about how we integrate with all of our pre-existing tech, because one of the things that I'm working on is I'm attending all of the different meetings to try to get a feeling as to how everyone is wanting to handle all of the different types of backlogs that we have going on and things of that nature. And so I'm trying to sit there and come up with a cohesive pattern for everyone. And so I'd love to hear more on that if at some point in time, if you could spare some time with me. My Calendly, oh, sorry, I don't have Calendly. I switched over to cal.com because it's open source. So it's just cal.com/Silona and find a time with me. And by the way, everyone, I feel like I should kind of tell everyone what I'm doing. So one of the things that I've been paid to do is to integrate with as many committees and working groups as I can to figure out what everyone is up to and what they're all doing so that we can come up with a more cohesive plan across all the different groups to propose. And so that's one reason why you've probably noticed me popping up in different places. If you feel like there's another place I should pop up in, please let me know and I'll do there and I'll be it. And what I'm trying to do is kind of, like change management aspects where I'm looking at, I went through and I attended a bunch of different people talking about backlogs, for example. And I see, first of all, people using backlogs in a way that I'm kind of like, well, it's not actually a backlog, but okay. But then I've also been identifying different kinds of backlogs, like an ecosystem-based one, and then a product-based one, and then release management, and then sprint management, so that we can divide them out and figure out how the different ones swim through each of their different approval processes, so that we can do things like budget and sustainable core development and all these other different things that I know is near and dear to many of y'all's hearts. So so what I'm trying to do is divide all that up, go to each of the different groups, say, what do you think on each of these different pieces? So I'll be bringing some of that back to y'all. And so you'll be, sitting there. Alex, mostly I've been sitting in on a lot of y'all's chat. I think I've only made it to one or two meetings. But I do feel like there is some crazy overlap happening between because now we've got the ecosystem group, we've got the civics group, we've got the one that Adam's talking about with the community one. And then we have the developer experience, and then this one. And so those were the main ones that I thought I should probably focus in on, because if anyone's going to overlap, it's going to be all y'all, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Nick?
Nicholas?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the topic of sort of Michael's replacement, I think that there is the wider process of how do we do elections to these committees, which I reading through the thing that Christian linked, I don't think that really goes, as you say, it targets a particular thing. So there's a wider process, but it doesn't feel like actually that's necessarily the business of this committee to really think about, unless we want to have different electoral procedures for each committee, which seems in some ways silly. Yeah, indeed. But there's also the tactical concern of, Michael is leaving now. And so what I feel like we should focus on is, we're not trying to solve the general issue of elections. We should be tracking whether, it sounds like maybe the community committee should be really considering that. But for now, we should probably just approve some interim process to say, yes, maybe it's of people who are already involved in this, or maybe we have a little, just announce it, but say, if you want to get involved, come and join here, and follow the process, something like Christian said, of just voting amongst existing members of the committee, inviting people to be involved.
I think it slightly depends how far away it is, right? Because we can potentially use this as a forcing function to say, please get your act together and give us some kind of voting process. If that's then going to take 6 months while there's wrangling about exactly what technology we will use and whether or not the results have to be posted on the blockchain or something, then, that's not going to work. But then maybe
we do both. we try to use it as a forcing function, and we give them, you know, n weeks, and if not, we just accept that we will do an interim process.
Yeah, Michael, I'm assuming you gave a 2-week notice, so we could try to get an interim process.
My notice is 4 weeks, and like I said, I'm going to be on a few hours a week after that for a while. So I can probably arrange to be around for a while.
Okay. Well, I think if we have a month notice, that'll be enough time to get an interim process together, campaign, and try and get a replacement for you before then. And then we can do the whole election overall, because at the end of Q2, we need to start doing our staggered campaigns anyway. So this might be a first committee use case for it.
Yeah.
Adam,
So should
please.
we take an action to reach out to the community group and say, hey, look, we want some kind of process, you know, up to you guys to really specify it. This is sort of around the deadline we're looking at. This is, you know, this is the hard deadline, i.e. for when we start to do the proper replacements. This is the soft deadline, i.e. maybe when we start looking for Michael's replacement. And if we don't have something from the body that's meant to be sorting it out by then, we go with something interim.
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I was just consulting with Paris Blockchain Week a few days ago on delivering them a voting solution in 5 days, because that's the lead time that they gave me, and they didn't like the budget that I gave them for a 5-day turnaround. But all that to say, we can do it, and we could execute a vote in as short a time period as possible. And I get that it's not the purview of this committee to define those processes, but it seems like we're one of the few that are always at the cutting edge of needing policies or procedures so far. And so for one, I'm terrified that MPJ is leaving, because I was just extolling the virtues of his tribal knowledge in the ecosystem and how much we rely on him in the SIP editors and things like that. So I'm terrified to be losing you, and hopefully you're not going to go too far away, Michael. But all that to say, I think we can deliver it in time. One of the big things for me when I was invited just a few months ago into this body was like, we don't even have definitions of what being on a committee means in Intersect right now. Like there's just nothing. So it's like, hey, you want to be on an open source committee? And then my first response would be like, well, sure, but what are the expectations there, right? We don't even have that defined clearly as an organization right now. So there's a whole bunch of backlog, but I think, yeah, we could probably just circulate to through Intersect, like, hey, we're looking for somebody that's interested in joining the open source committee right now, and just start to collect hands, and then do a Discord vote at worst case, like if we have to, you know. So we have a lot of short-term solutions if we can't get the longer-term solutions in place in time. But yeah, definitely scoping out what all is really going to be required for these things is going to be a big ask. But we do, I think this body expires in August, if I'm not mistaken, Christian.
Yeah.
Technically, right? Like, and then it'll be up to whoever's masochistic enough to want to stay the course and carry on. So.
Yeah, which we can always fall back to the unofficial process, which is where anyone who's marked interest before, we'll ping them as an for wanting to participate in the open source committee, and then we take nominations to consider the candidates from external references, and then bring them in and let the committee vote. Or unless you have a direct delegate, that would be a big good fit. Yeah. Probably make something more transparent though, since Discord vibes are going there for sure.
The thing is, how are y'all verifying identities on Discord?
That's, I think, I have to caveat because I don't officially know, but I know that there's a verified tick under certain people.
Mhm.
So I know there's something that they're doing. I just don't know what.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like that's outside of the remit of this body. You know, that's not our job to solve.
Yeah, it's a happy accident that there's overlap. Like I said, since I'm on the community group and this body,
Right.
hopefully my solution can it'll just add extra urgency to my workload, essentially.
We could also pull up your old PR too, Adam.
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
run-
but that was more, again, the kind of the rules surrounding the staggered election process and cycle, and not how do we vote, right? And I had actually written that with a much smaller subset in mind. I also thought we were voting, the existing body was voting on a new member coming in rather than the entire Intersect membership, which definitely changes the timelines and the scales so that you don't end up with accusations that there wasn't enough time for interested nominees to submit their claim. Like generally the more public something is, the longer you have to stretch it out to ensure that there's proper notification time for all the processes. So it's
But
yeah.
maybe that would be good to resurrect as the interim process.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be leaning on that heavily since I wrote that original document in the first place anyway. So I'll just be kind of taking a new set of eyes with more experience to that document and refining from there.
Also, even if we don't manage to force the definition of the full thing, if they end up deciding that we're going to use, I don't know, some piece of software for voting, then I know we could try and do bits of it and use that software for the committee voting on something to just try and get as much of the pieces as we can working.
Solana, did you want to clarify those subpoints?
Oh, yeah. I'm just sitting there saying that when you do voting and you're doing the announcements and things of that, you do have to have a centralized methodology so that everybody does need to know, oh, this is where it will be posted. This is where this thing will happen. This is where all these different portions will go out. It's also a big way of marketing. When I sit there and I do announcements on LinkedIn and Twitter and things of that, and Mastodon and stuff, that's when I actually get a lot of people to come in and join and start participating, is when they're like, oh, this thing is really happening. Oh, there's elections happening. Oh, this is being done in a way that I do want to participate. And to be quite honest, with some of the reputational things that y'all are dealing with in this community, it would be really helpful for y'all. The more that you advertise, we're being open, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing all these different things, the better off you're going to be in regards to it.
Yeah.
So that's just what I was talking.
Well, I was even thinking about to help clarify that situation, because everyone on this committee wasn't necessarily chosen. It was people who had volunteered interest. I think the only person I pursued was Michael directly, but just because, and I don't think you'll ever escape from us, Michael, because your Cardano engineering handbook, if anyone makes a change, you're going to be immediately reviewing it. So
don't worry, I can mute those notifications.
But yeah, just to, because I think people know our committee's here, but we get small attendance, so I think we need more marketing that way, just so there is something you can participate in.
I mean, it's not clear that people do know really that these committees exist. I do agree with Solana that the more we can, having it open is one thing, but if no one is reading the open stuff you're producing, then it is also slightly going into the void.
Yeah.
Does Intersect have a Twitter account, by the way?
Intersect does. I'm trying to part of a Q2
is
thing.
It publishing
that's
all the meeting minutes? Because why the hell not? Anyway, this is off topic, but
yeah, it's something to go into. I mean, we already have the meeting minutes up. So Intersect as a whole is, we have to come up with a communications plan to work with Intersect's marketing team to make things more brand aware. So yeah, I've considered just setting up one for the open source office and just do everything for the committee right out there, but I don't know if that's
One thing that I have all my communities do is they normally create their own tags, their own hashtags, so that when anything gets posted, they can basically, that's like, each group often has stuff that they're like, hey, could you promote that we just did this? Hey, we just did this great video, or we talked about such and such and we did a post on it. Or, Michael Payton did some, wonderful paper that we want people to look at and things of that nature. And so you have a really clear path to, especially Twitter and LinkedIn, because they're just quickie posts, is to go look at this, da, 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 da. And then you put the hashtag for it as to, which group it is. So that people all know, oh, this came out of the, open source committee. Okay, cool. And they'll come over and read it, and it becomes a good, and not only that, but when you do that, like if you're on those committee, you set up watches for them, and you just retweet everything that they tweet. So it becomes a really good way of being able to inspire more volunteers to join up.
Okay, that'd be cool because I know I've been using my LinkedIn to try and bring more awareness. But most of the people I have aviation contacts given prior history. So,
I mean, if Intersect has a marketing, like someone doing marketing, like this is their job. Like, I mean, I would hope it would not be that difficult for us to just say, please, can you, every time there's some new minutes, we'd have a meeting, we'll tell you, and you can tweet out the minutes. Like,
yeah, I'll meet with Tim and get that across. Tex?
Just real quick, while I'm putting it in here, updating it, I'm in the committee space. I was just moving some things over so y'all could see it in a more immediate fashion. Michael, I think you may have brought it up in Matrix after we'd gone through it there, or it may have been internal, but I wanted to clarify with the committee here in terms of ratify versus approve. So I think when we're talking about strategy or policies, that my understanding would be is that it's approved because nobody's formally signing their name on a document, which is the definition of ratification or ratify. Any opinions?
I have an opinion on ratify. Ratify means it's that there's a lot of things that happen before using the word ratify. I would just say approved. And I would sit there and list approved by the open source committee. So that way they know that that's the group who did it and we're the group who worked on it. And when you say ratify, that often means in the nonprofit world that the board signed off on it. So you really shouldn't use that word. There's like, it's weird, but in like normally in the nonprofit realm, which, we're only like halfway in that world on the Intersect stuff because they've done the Wyoming, but they haven't done the IRS, means that we really need, there's a lot of stuff to be careful of because if they do want to go for the IRS one later, we need to keep our nose clean on certain things. And that would be one of those words that you don't want to just put out there.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was passed by the committee and that's changed. What I'll do is I'll make sure that that's changed on all correspondence, not only in the committee space, but also in the open source office space here at Intersect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
I think the key word is approved. Okay. Also, just so the committee is aware, we will have some documentation coming for y'all's review. I'm working with George to draft some of these out in Solana as our pre-committee review. But it's documents that she had suggested that we have for new repos and projects, basic things like that. Maintainer roles, responsibilities, contribution ladder, basic things that we should have, which most of our open source prep while we were at IOG kind of got some of the basics across, like just making sure there's an about me, a read me. I think some of the things we're missing is the code owner MDs. So you know who the code owners are, and then we probably need to add contributor MDs to give recognition to who's contributing. But that ties in with our Bitergia tool, letting us know who those people are.
How does this line up with the governance policy? Because that specifies a bunch of those things as well, right?
Well, and we're going to be doing an audit on that as well. Tex and George will be auditing each of the projects to come up with a progress report to show what's been adopted, what hasn't, and then we'll do a remediation steps to make sure all the projects are in compliance.
Oh yeah. And Michael's just linked to the documentation policy, I guess.
We have
I suppose
like 2 paragraphs on it. We can certainly extend that.
Yeah.
I did think there was some stuff like if we're going to do code owners, I think we might want to avoid telling people to do things that require them to make lots of decisions that they're not currently doing. Like step 1 can be let's try and get everyone to agree that they're doing the stuff they're already doing. I think some of the card owner repos use code owners, some of them don't. I don't know whether we want to mandate that.
Well, that's why from my point of view, I like uniformity for basic stuff. But it's like some projects you can't force. Like a nice to have is a pull request template or an issues template, but you can't necessarily mandate that projects do it. They're just really nice to have.
One of the things that I've done before is there's certain badges that in open source that you can go in and get, and they do require certain things like that to have been done. And so that might be something that we also talk with the certification committee about as to with open, because I've been talking with various entities about the openness index that we're working on, where it's basically, have you done this? Well, okay, then you're getting better, because open source means many different things in regards to that. There's like some that are like open source. It's like, well, yeah, but you're basically dominated by one corporation versus, the different levels. And so I've been talking to them a lot about the different levels and how we might want to measure that. So
I think that would be nice too, and it adds a little marketing to the project too if they have the badges. So there's some self-incentive.
yeah. And there are some that are out there, like the Linux Foundation has one that's been out for a really long time. But it's like, I think they're fixing it, but like it was really whack when I did it for Hyperledger, because I made all the Hyperledger projects and labs use it. And they got really mad at me because like it sucked for libraries. Like libraries could never get green because there's certain things that you just don't need to do for a library. And so the libraries were always like red or yellow, and they're like, that's not fair. And I'm like, no, you're right. It's because the tool's shitty. It's open source. Go fix it. But that's the kind of stuff that's out there. It's not perfect, but there are different things where we can go in there and do that and look for those kind of stuff.
Okay. I think it was the Open SF badges I was looking into. And
Yeah,
I think those would be hard ones to earn for some of our projects, even for the base layer.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for just like how much we want to push people at various stages. Like, we can, we might want to start with being slightly less demanding, get everybody doing those things, and then increase our level of demandingness over time.
I think so too. And it kind of comes into the project lifecycle framework anyway, or even the incubation, where if you want to be a certain level of project maturity, you have to have these certain badges as acceptance criteria. Do it that way. But I'll go ahead and switch us to open forum, even though I think we kind of went into that. We've covered everything on the agenda. Any other items anyone wants to bring up?
I don't know. Did you want to post some of the docs that you and I are going to be working on for any of that, or to sit there and
Yeah,
see?
let me.
Anyone wants
Is
to.
it okay to share that drive? If not, I can move it over to or copy what's applicable over to a separate drive and share it that way.
Yeah, let's do that, because I don't know if I'm allowed to share that whole drive, but you can definitely share the checklist that I gave you.
Okay. I'll do that.
I don't know if we can share that whole, because like that other one has all the nonprofit stuff in it too, and I think that might be confusing for everyone. So yeah.
I'll just do the required open source repos because of all the checklists in there. Okay.
That'll work.
Let me copy that over. Okay, I'll send that out in the Matrix channels. Oh, we have a cool tool Bogdan's been working on, if you want to pull it up, Bogdan. So we're working with Perturgia to see if we can implement it via their platform as well. I have a consultation period with them, I think, in the beginning of May, to help us get our dashboards up so it's nice and fancy for everybody. But he actually was able to tie in some Matrix plugins to pick up via LLM different conversation topics. I'll let you describe it. I'm taking all the thunder.
Yeah, so basically it's about connecting to the Metrics API, pulling the messages from the certain rooms, pre-process the data, anonymize the user, and then trying to understand which are the main discussion topics, because actually in Metrics there are 10 rooms, 10 channels, and also there is Discord. And I would say thinking on Metrics will be very hard for just one person to have a broad understanding about what is discussed. And this was a key question for me, how we can set a metric over the community engagement or everything that we have relating to communication to be aligned with the strategy. So this was the idea, to involve a kind of NLP or whatever stuff to understand what is discussed and create a kind of dashboards to clustering the topics somehow. So the prototype is done. It's connected to Elasticsearch, and from Elasticsearch to Kibana, and in Kibana, which is a kind of originator for Bitergia, we have right now some dashboards that shows how the discussion topics are spread across different rooms in Matrix.
Do you want to tease it real fast? We still got to work out the kinks before we share it widely. But
Do you want me to share on the screen something, Christian?
yeah, if you can.
Yeah, wait a second. 1 second to
I
open.
usually have to refresh my browser 3 times before it shows up.
So it's to share the screen. Share the screen. Share the screen.
What happened to it?
Okay, now you should see my screen. You see my screen, right?
Yep.
So looks like something like this. So these are topics per room. There are some general topics that were defined at the beginning, for sure can be changed. So open source development, debugging and troubleshooting, performance and data optimization, and so on, open source governance policies. So as you can imagine here, open source governance policies is mainly discussed in the open source committee room. So this is open source committee room, and this here you see the different topics that are inside of this room. Pluto score looks like this, with the main topic being performance and data optimization. Then you have a kind of general sentiment per room and other stuff that you can play around here into this visualization tool that is connected to Elastic. For example, this for me was very interesting to see something like this. So in Pluto score, we have mainly two people that are discussing. So actually the community engagement is not so big. You have 2-3 main contributors or people that write on the channel. So this could be one of the learnings at the beginning, how we can involve more people, because otherwise it will be one single person or 2 people job to keep the room or the channel alive. Here it's a distribution, for example, open source committee room for the topics being discussed. So for sure, this is just a prototype. It was something that I tried to understand how can be shown in, yeah. So now more or less works, and the next step will be how we can be translating this to Bitergia, because from what I read, Bitergia can pull data from Elastic. So as long as works with Kibana, which Kibana is the originator of Kibiter. Kibiter, it's a soft fork from Kibana, and Kibiter is the foundational thing for Grimoire Lab that it's used by Bitergia.
Yeah, essentially he got tired of writing strategy, so he went to writing code to help us get this set up. So.
Yeah.
But we're gonna figure out the back end of hosting it so it's not on his personal account, and then get Bitergia to integrate with it. Solana?
Yeah, so I was already talking with Yvonne and some of the other people about, well, not necessarily Elastic, because Elastic isn't open anymore, but Kibana is a really good choice for doing a bunch of these dashboards for a lot of the different reporting that they were trying to do, and having instead some kind of centralization aspect for enterprise search. So what you can do is take your Discord and your Element and your email and your and your Git book and all of those different things, and have them all propagate into a data set, a database. I hate to say data lake, because so many implementations of that I've seen are shit, but instead doing, I called it a data hub at PayPal. but putting it in there so that we could all search it and do these Kibana dashboards off of it. So that way we could get all the analytics that we needed to get, both from open stuff that we own as well as the proprietary ones. But I would caution on some of these different ones, especially for doing some of the AI portions, because they harvest everything that you put in there. So be aware of that you're not having any data autonomy and you're basically giving it all to Microsoft. But if you're good with that, then proceed. It's just something that I don't feel comfortable with the majority of the time.
One thing, Silona. So yes, you're right about Elastic, but the version of Elastic that was used is 7.10.
Okay.
And for 7.10, it's still open source.
Yeah.
This is one thing. And about the LLM thing, yes, you're right, but they are harvesting anyhow. And if you don't want, you can use, for example, an open source or something else, not ChatGPT or whatever. So another model that it's hosted, or I don't know. So
yeah,
for the moment, it's connected to my very personal, personal API account. So if someone wants to move to another model, no problem. So it's just an API call. That's all.
No. We're creating our own because, with the Leading Bit solutions, we do everything in regards to data autonomy. Like everything must be open source, and everything must have data autonomy so that we can lock everything down if we so choose. And so that's what we're doing. But yeah. And as you said, it's not that big of a deal to transfer it over. I'm just saying, be careful because,
it was just for testing.
Yeah. I've had it where they've been lying on things. Let's just put it that way. OpenAI has been not just grabbing open source stuff. They've been grabbing private repos, and I've seen proof examples of it. So they've been outing things that they shouldn't be outing.
Well, and if we're going to be pulling from Matrix, where a lot of the development conversations are going to be, we need to make sure we don't pull a security risk.
Yeah.
Especially if any conversations of security are in there.
Anyway,
that shouldn't be happening in private rooms anyway.
These rooms, rooms are public available, so they are completely open. I didn't took any data from any private room. So
awesome, good.
Okay.
That's the important thing to hear for me, is just we know that we know that that's happening and we're aware of it. And like Michael says, we don't want to pull any 0 days. You don't want to, things of that nature. There's a lot of PII data out there right now that you can get to on OpenAI and not that hard. So yeah, it's a concern.
Okay. Well, I think we got everything. I did also, Bitergia's up and running again. They switched, believe it or not, Selena, you'd be surprised. They dropped GitLabs, or like from hosting on GitLab, I think. I don't know what they moved to, but I got a support email. We had to get new credentials altogether.
I'll have to ask them about that, because I was already talking with the gal that you're supposed to be talking with, because we're actually talking about Web3 tools that need to be developed, honestly. And so that's interesting that they got off of GitLab. I wonder if they went to Gitly, or that seems like probably the most likely that they went over to, but I'll call Georg and ask him.
Yeah. We just yesterday we got kicked out of everything and had to get new logins. So I just happened to see that on an email that came by. Yeah. But just so everyone on this committee has it, copy and paste that. This is our general access account to the Bitergia data. Just wanted to make that available to everyone on the committee. We're going to make a more general access account. But first, we're going up and cleaning up affiliations and things like that currently. And then trying to break out where all our repos are not under Intersect project, but the associated projects based on components. Which I may work with you on that, Michael, just to help lay out what repos go to what projects based on your knowledge, and then some other stakeholders. But that's everything. Any questions, or I'll give everyone 8 minutes back. Sorry, we went 28 over. Alrighty, I'll see y'all next week. Everyone enjoy your weekend.
Great. Thanks,
Cheers,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Do, 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 do.